Coming up,
I just feel like we're undervalued because of history. I think that's why racism still exists today. I think it's something embedded, and at least speaking from a woman's perspective, I feel like we're just not appreciated enough, especially in the Black community. It's almost like we're expected to perform so much in so many different areas that it's like we don't get our flowers because that's expected of us.
what is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 12. What did you hear that with Shimei and Lauren? I'm Shimei Cook.
I'm Lauren Gilchrist.
How are you doing, Lauren?
Really good. A little bit stressed, but I think it's coming with the summer heating up. Heating up.
Yeah. And
So
wrapping up. The
yes,
summer heating up and wrapping up. Yes, we got the temperatures heating up, and then we got the semesters around the corner, fall semesters around the corner. So that's a lot of pressure. But we're managing, right?
yes, getting through it. We're almost at Cleveland.
Yep.
We're getting there.
Yeah, less than a month away, and we're working out the kinks. We're planning to do the podcast live. We're working out the kinks of it. I'm still working it out, but we're gonna definitely do a show, either pre-recorded or live. I want it to be live, but we'll see how it is. Because Lauren and I's schedules are gonna be hectic that whole week. I already got stuff planned. Soon as I touch down, into Cleveland, this is gonna be good. Because first of all, this is my first time flying. Well, this is my longest flight I have ever taken, so that's what I'm kind of nervous about. And I
Mm-hmm.
have an overlay. I don't know am I saying it right? Is it overlay or layover?
Like,
Layover,
mhm.
layover, layover for about an hour. So I got some. Yeah, I'm flying from RDU, Raleigh, North Carolina, to um to Detroit. From Detroit to Cleveland. So it's a lot of stuff going on. Um, so yeah, I'm glad I'm flying Delta, so I'm happy with that. I'm almost to the bathroom with the in the plane, but uh I'm grateful. But yeah, it's all good. But today's discussion is all about um women, okay? And here's why. So recently, the WNBA had their All-Star weekend, All-Star week in their game, and players wore a shirt that says "Pay us what you owe us." And this goes down to a discussion I really would like to have is why do you believe that women are continuously being underpaid? Not just in professional sports or being not just underpaid, but under highlighted, under representation, underrepresented. Um, not just in sports, we see it in media, we see it in music, we see it in all sports, we see it in just how the world or the system, I wouldn't say the world, but the system treats women versus men. And speaking from a guy perspective, I feel like women should be paid just as much as men are because they do more than men. They have a lot more pressure than men, in my opinion. Everybody else's opinions is different. And I feel like historically, women have been always the government has forced women to rely on men. And the times has changed. So the question really is, why do you believe society still holds men over women, Lauren?
I honestly think it just kind of goes down to history, like how sometimes people talk about how racism is something ingrained in some people. I think the same mentality of like women being less than or um less important or don't necessarily need their flowers or recognition sometimes is embedded. And like you said, for so long, the system has been like created to make it so where women have to rely on men for everything, like to have bank accounts, to go to school, to purchase, do large purchases, like for such a long time. Um, that was the case. And even on TikTok, I've seen like there's a new conversation now of like a lot of older women are telling the younger women, especially in our community, like not necessarily don't get married, but don't feel like you have to get married because from their point of view, they had to get married and that's their way, that was their way of survival. They had to depend on a man to provide for everything. Whereas now women can go to school, they can go to college, they can have careers for themselves.
They can vote.
Yeah,
Remember we yep.
exactly. Um, I just feel like we're undervalued because of history. I think that's why racism still exists today. I think it's something embedded, and we, at least speaking from a woman's perspective, I feel like we're just not appreciated enough, especially in the Black community. It's almost like we're expected to perform so much in so many different areas that it's like we don't get our flowers because that's expected of us. And I don't know how it is for men, but it's like men could do the simplest thing and they get praised for it. And I guess maybe because they're just not expected to do certain things.
And that's the stereotype that's really wrong with how society thinks, which I'm still trying to understand why. Now I feel like people are people. I feel like we should be treated equally. We should be treated, don't doesn't matter the race, your gender or how you identify. It doesn't matter. I think we should be treated the same way. Now, I do believe that there are some contexts where it comes to um in different households, this the responsibilities of the guy and the responsibilities of the woman. I feel like that's very cliche because like I said, women women can do the same things as men does. Now, the only difference between the guy and the woman is that women can carry children. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. And I think that other than that, we should be accommodating to those type of things. But when it comes to equal pay, when it comes to respect, because I just don't understand, especially in our generation, women are starting to be more independent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand, and I want you to help me elaborate on how can guys or how can guys and men help women to support them? How can we support them in pursuing stuff like equal pay or equal respect? How can guys do that? Because from my perspective, I feel like I could do all I can. I still try to collaborate with different, especially black women, collaborate with black women or, give props where, respect and props to women who I like to work with or who I find very interesting in their business or their craft. How can women gain more respect and support from men?
I think one way that came immediately to my mind, honestly, if men stop look over sexualizing women in the workplace. I think that's a good start. I feel like on a lot of different shows where women may co-host or just be a part of the staff, sometimes women are just seen as the pretty figure or we just need somebody pretty on this show or we just need an image, and that's not the case. A
Do
lot of
you think it's done intentionally, or do you think that it's just just paints the picture that way. That's the way it works out.
Both. I think it's
Okay.
both. I really think it's both. Sometimes it may be intentional, um, and unintentional because from like a marketing standpoint, um, the head may be like, okay, if we have this pretty woman, we'll get more male viewers and da 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 da. And then in other cases, the woman just may be a pretty woman and she has to deal with sometimes what comes with that. Um, I think if men just look at women as equals instead of like the lesser, I know men honestly, feel have a natural instinct of being the head, of being the leader, and can get easily intimidated by women who have strong opinions or have a lot to say or offer a lot. Um, just seeing them as equals, I think that helps. And I think advocating for women. I think sometimes some men have such a big ego that it's like everything has to be about them. And if certain women get into certain doors, into certain industries, whether that's media, whether that's sports, whether that's corporate, whatever it is, if there's a woman in your space, I think you should be giving her as heavy tasks as you have and expecting her to kind of just do the same level of work. Um, I think that's the best way to put it. I think another way that men can just support women in general, this may sound really like old fashioned and traditional, but today, like I and a few other my sister queens, we were getting things from our warehouse today, and we passed by several men who didn't even want to lend a helping hand. I think one way of support is again just eliminating the selfish aspect. If you see a woman needing help in that aspect, whether it's carrying things.
Well, okay, now does that go down to a gender thing there? Because, well, like I said, that I understand. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If I see like you're struggling with something, I'm gonna help you, right? But do you feel like some guys maybe think like this woman probably wants to do everything by herself? She wants to be independent. Do you think that's like a thing now?
Mm-hmm.
Or because maybe those guys didn't think that you guys needed help or something like that?
I agree because I feel like I think sometimes the reason why we have to be independent, especially as Black women, what I've learned, especially dealing with that little boy I was with, um,
Yes, she admits it. Yes.
um, is that sometimes we can't even rely on men. It's like we may need something and they
Okay,
don't
what do you mean by rely? Financially, emotionally, all together?
all
Because this, okay, that's
together.
fair.
If we're Shamai, you wouldn't do this to me because you're really professional and you get things done. But let's say, for example, um, I needed you to write a script today for something, like our show, for example. And you said you were going to get it to me by a certain time. You didn't get it to me by a certain time. We're about to do the show. I don't know what's going on. So I have to write the script to send it in for the deadline. Things like that. Um, when at least for me, and I know a lot of other women, when a man says they're going to do something, and this isn't always about relationships, this is literally like in any capacity, we're expecting the man to follow through, and when they don't, it's like, okay, well, I guess I just have to handle it all by myself. um so I think that drives the whole independent factor sometimes. And I think that's a lot of reasons why women are now also pushing so hard to get into their own career paths because a lot of men aren't aren't doing their own thing.
So you think the good, I just want to make sure, because in my opinion, I feel like the old-fashioned way is plain old old-fashioned. It's outdated. Unless someone literally asks you, "Can you help?" or hold the door or something like that. In this society, I will say, I feel like, especially There's the woman quote unquote roles and there's the man quote unquote roles. But we live in a society where everybody's not in a traditional relationship where there is a man and a woman. There's women and women relationships. There's man and man relationships. So it goes down to this person's too feminine or too masculine. How are ways do you believe? Because in my opinion, I feel like we over masculate the black woman, in my opinion, especially when she's such a strong black woman and she's doing all these things. In your opinion, how can people or society change that or stop it?
That's a good question. I think what I've learned is putting yourself in other people's shoes. And I feel like with men, that's a big issue. They don't do that. They kind of have a one-track mind. Because like you said, I agree 100%, especially for Black women, it's always, she's so strong, she can take the pain, she can take on this, she can take on that. And I feel like a lot of men per se don't ever think about, what if I were tasked to do all of this? What if I had to go to work. I had to care for my parents. I have to care for my children, and I still got to be strong on this many levels. I think just being able to see beyond themselves would help. Um, or either if they can't even see for themselves, think about their own mother. A lot of people, especially athletes, Black athletes, love to get on the draft stage, things like that, and say, I watched my grandma struggle, I watched my auntie struggle, I watched my mom struggle, and be like, I'm gonna pay for her house and I'm gonna give her a lavish life. But then, marry someone and put them through the same amount of hell that their mother went through. And it's kind of like, think about your mom, think about your aunt, or think about your sister. Like, if you're seeing, how do I put this? Just seeing it from a different, more personal point of view, that would help.
Yeah. Having empathy.
Exactly, exactly.
Empathy. Okay.
Have empathy, like that would definitely help. Um, because I mean, just with myself observing people, that's one thing I've been working on. Like, I think that's helped me be a little bit less judgmental, a little bit less hard on people when I start, looking deeper into their situation and not just always focusing so much on myself. Um, Black women deal with so much, so much. And me being an oldest daughter, I feel like I've dealt with so much and still to this day have been expected, there's been so much expected out of me. And part of the reason why I'm pushing so hard for my career and finishing school is just because, my grandma didn't go to college. My mom didn't go to college. She's now, enrolled online, but she's, in her 40s. And so I'm trying to kind of change the narrative of like just pursuing what I want to pursue, because I feel like a lot of women in my mom's generation and my grandma's generation were confined to, all you can do is get married and have kids. Or there's certain careers women were boxed into, and they couldn't necessarily fulfill their dream of certain careers. Um, I think if a lot of men would just stop looking at women as mothers or just as wives,
Yeah.
caregivers,
And look
think
at them as equal partners.
exactly, that would change a lot. Because if you looked at me equally, you would be advocating for the same pay. You would be advocating for me to also have the same level of assignments or work. You would be celebrating me the same. It wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, she did that type of thing. Um, Equals.
All right, in college, we're in college. I feel like I have experience where, especially when it comes, in your student leadership and student government, I feel like when it comes to like student leadership in just a campus culture in general, we see when it comes to the women versus the guy, it seems like the guy gets a little, get a little more slack, but the competition for the queen is
Mm,
much more intense. It's much more, and it probably does have to do with the women. The women do outweigh the men. That's probably a factor also. But also, I feel like it goes down to why does college culture, not just HBCUs, but when it comes to college culture, we seem like there's a little bit more drama or more attention towards women when it comes to running for office or when it comes to um doing certain things and being more involved on campus. What have you dealt with on your campus, when it comes to women versus men's issues
mm,
or treatments? Because treatments can be favored. Because even with professors, I've seen where certain professors treat male students compared differently compared to female students, and I have addressed that with certain professors because I have seen like it's kind of weird in a
mm.
way, and I feel like it's unfair because everybody's here for the same reason to get their education. So I just don't. What have you experienced, Lauren?
I think from an academic setting, I've definitely seen it where professors will give a lot of slack, especially to the male athletes. There can be women athletes in my classes, but they still don't get as much slack as the men. The men can never show up to class, can never do their work, and still somehow pass. Where if there was a girl who was on the basketball team or volleyball team, they don't get that same level of excusal or passes or whatnot. And they're treated like they don't have anything going on, um, which is crazy to see. I think this is also crazy because I had a class with a professor being a black woman, and I saw how the men in my class, she treated them, with so much love and affection. Well, not affection, but like just so much favoritism. Yeah,
Treatment.
yeah,
Yeah.
so much like treatment, so much understanding. Like I said, the men could not, they don't have to show up to class. They can half do their work. Um, but if, like for me per se, I'm traveling with the marching band, I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there, I'm still getting my work done and maybe a little late, or I may need a little bit more time. I get so much pushback. Yet for them, they're not even involved or doing anything. They have no excuse to miss class. Yet she's giving them so much, favoritism. So I've definitely seen that, and it's hard to deal with because it's like, how do you even confront that or address that? And then like I said, it's coming from your own kind, which makes it even
It be
worse.
your own people. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it be your own people.
it makes it 10 times worse. And I will never understand that. I think sometimes with older Black women, especially, they see someone like me or other students who are thriving or have the opportunity to thrive and are bitter. Um, I have another professor the same way. She just gave me such a hard time. I turned everything in on time to do as much as I can. And she literally tried to fail me on a project because I had a misspelled word on a PowerPoint. She's the same woman that called me a failure, by the way. But
Wow.
um just with the men, she'll kind of flirt with them or give them a lot of slack. And like I said, they don't have as much going on. um and even if they did, the point of the matter is they get so much leeway compared to the students like me or women like me who are actually coming to you in advance or sending you the letters from the dean of students. And there's so much pushback. So I've definitely dealt with that. Um, what was your question kind of like with the student leadership aspect?
Yeah, when it comes to student leadership, what have treatment from your fellow students? How has that affect you? Because I'm seeing like for running for public office on campus, there's a different type of atmosphere when it comes to or treatment towards voters or towards students, towards the student body, where or reaction towards the student body when it comes to a female candidate to a male candidate or a non-binary candidate. Because usually
Mhm.
some of that case, because there's a king, well, from an HBCU perspective, there's a king and there's a queen, and certain people feel certain type of ways when other people want to run for certain positions and they don't fit the stereotype or the image in that
Yeah.
way. So how have you dealt with that?
I definitely think looking back at my Miss NSU campaign that a lot of the focus was on the three girls running. With the guys, they really didn't have to campaign as hard when it came to Fizz and just social media in general. There wasn't a whole bunch of chatter. But what I've noticed for the girls when it comes to Royal Court, SGA, anything big on campus, we are the first to be targeted. Like you said, Shimei, if we're not fitting the beauty standard or if our campaign isn't, chewing enough, um, we get targeted so quickly and it's really, really crazy. And I think going into now Kings and Queens, the conference coming up, that was a big topic of discussion with the admin coming to us. Like it felt like we have to worry about our hair. There's only certain types of hairstyles you can have. Um,
Yeah, I've seen that like with the queen, it's like a lot more pressure on them when it
mhm,
comes to representing your school than the
mhm,
guys.
it
Because
is.
I've seen like even at going to CIAA,
Mhm,
which is it's a one of the biggest HBCU basketball tournaments in the whole country. It's and I went there this past semester. And it was in Baltimore, and we see like the type of respect
mhm,
we see when it comes to when people see a HBCU queen compared to a HBCU king.
mhm.
And it's like, in a way, I feel like that's kind of wrong, but a lot of standards are so outdated.
Yeah, they are. They
And
are.
that's the problem.
They're very outdated. And what's crazy is that for most universities, the queen came before the king. Like
Exactly.
there's a
Exactly.
there's a lot of
Yes.
universities that have just added a king maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and they've had a queen for 20 plus years. And like you said, the pressure is crazy. Like coming in the royal court, I knew we would have to, always look put together and things like that. But like you said, some of these standards are outdated. Not everybody is the same shape or size. Not everybody, wear certain hairstyles. Not everybody prefers to wear makeup. Um, and with us, it seems like we can't even fulfill our platform that we ran on sometimes because it's so much about how you look, how you look, how you look, um, and being pushed so hard to look a certain way for an image. Whereas the man,
And I feel like that's the problem with
mhm,
how students are voting on college's campus because it's all about the image. You could be I heard this saying if it looks like a duck, if quack like a duck, it's not a mongoose. Okay? Because just because something looks good, it could be so look at Snow White with the she had the apple. The apple looks really good, but what happened? She ate it and she died. Right?
exactly,
So just because something looks really good doesn't mean it's really, really good for you.
exactly, and that's one thing I really hate is that, and I've seen it on previous years for different positions on campus. People are being elected solely on looks. And like you said, they can't fulfill their platform because they just aren't allowed to. Or either they never really ran on a platform. They just ran on how they look and being popular. And that's what people gravitated to.
Or their status.
Exactly. Status. Exactly.
Hmm.
Um, and it's terrible. And like I said, even just thinking about the campaign, like it was so much more focused on us, and the guys really could just lay back, lay low, um, and do whatever. And I agree, so many men gets so the men get so much respect, but they haven't even been here as long as us, which just really makes it worse.
What's the moral of the story?
I think the moral of the story is honestly women need support from men, and the narrative can't change unless they start to see us as equals or see us as more than just a face, more than just an image, more than just a mother, more than just a girlfriend, just seeing us as equals in society that we can succeed as well, just like you. Um, I think that's the moral of the story. I think also just being aware of women's achievements and accomplishments. Stop downplaying it. It shouldn't take someone dying, for you to finally, acknowledge all that they've done. Um, you hear that a lot, especially when older women in the family die. All of a sudden, everybody in the family, wants to talk about all the great things she's done and give her flowers while she's dead. Well, why didn't you give her any credit while she was living? Acknowledging women's achievements on a regular basis, because we acknowledge men all the time. We acknowledge men through trophies, through awards. Now with social media, it's very, very prevalent. Um, Women need a lot more recognition, especially in the Black community, for all that they do, on so many different levels. And at HBCUs, especially women in sports, women who dance, women who are part of organizations, Greek life, SGA, Royal Court, all of that, women deserve the same level of respect, treatment, funding, as well as men, um, because there's definitely a disconnect.
Totally concur. Like I said, black women are the best thing God ever created. I always say that. But also, I say this all the time. Without us behind a successful black man or man, there is a woman behind that.
Mhm.
Okay? So everybody has a mother. Everybody, has some woman that puts you together. So I feel like women make the world go round. If we didn't have women, we would not know what to do with ourselves. So I feel like in saluting what Lauren said and concurring what she was saying, we just need to hold, corporations and be allies to women who are dealing with inequality when it comes to money, when it comes to treatment in the workplace, when it comes to or in college and stuff. So if you see something that's not right, especially when it comes to treatment of women, we need to speak up on it. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lauren. This was a great discussion today.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Because I've definitely seen it on my campus in just so many different areas that,
And I feel like it's black. It's bad in the black community. It's even worse in
yes,
the black community.
it's 10 times worse. Because, like I
Yeah.
said, sometimes it's even from my own kind.
It be your own people. It be your own people. And that's the problem. And yeah, that's a whole different discussion. How it be
Hmm.
your own people who tear you down or make you feel like you're not doing your best. It be your own people, and then compared to other people who don't look like you, they support you, they be in your corner. Yeah, that's another discussion we gotta discuss. But until next time, we thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to episode 12. I'm Shimei Cook.
I'm a Lauren Gilchrist.
And make sure you guys like and subscribe and tune in to Did You Hear That next time right here on whatever you get your podcast and on the Cook Entertainment YouTube page. See you guys next time. Bye bye.
Ladies and gentlemen.